Hello guys, I'm John, I'm the Geeky Fanboy, and welcome back. Today we're doing a review of a TV series I like a lot, and that is an understatement, namely The Alienist. So, a while ago, I think it was like I'm not even sure, 2017, 2018, the first season of The Alienist came out. It's based on a book of the same name by the author Caleb Carr, as far as I remember. And I like that series a lot because it speaks to me on this whole basis of, it's a crime show, but it has a lot to do with psychology and, the dark side of a human being. And, Hannibal vibes also as well. And it has this old school setting. It's set in the late 1800s, as far as I remember, in America, and it follows the alienist, Dr. Laszlo Chrysler. And the alienist is basically a sort of term for very early psychologists or psychotherapists that existed back then. And yeah, that is Dr. Laszlo Chrysler, and he's accompanied by his best friend, John Moore, who works for the local newspaper. And we also have Miss Sarah Howard, who is played by Dakota Fanning. And she starts off as an assistant in the local police station, one of the first female police people. And, well, we're gonna see what happens with her in the second season. So yeah, this review is supposed to be about the second season that came out not too long ago. I know I'm a bit late on this, but yeah, the second season concluded a couple of weeks ago, early August, and I want to talk about it because I'm a huge fan of the series. I really enjoyed season 1, and I'm going to keep this as spoiler-free as possible. If I should get into spoilers, I'll give you a warning beforehand, so don't worry. Okay, so let's dive right into it. The second season is based on Caleb Carr's second book, The Angel of Darkness. It's set not too long after season 1, and the only things that have changed basically are that Sarah no longer works for the local police station, but instead has become a private investigator herself and has her own detective agency, and John is still working for the local newspapers, but is more of a journalist now instead of just drawing the pictures and all that. And Laszlo is basically still doing the same thing. So the story of the second season starts off with Laszlo talking to a woman who is about to be put to death for apparently murdering a child, but the child's body was never found. So she gets sentenced to death basically as an innocent woman, and Laszlo promises her to find her child. And at the same time, Sarah, sorry, I need to remember this. Sarah takes on the case of a important Spanish family who's in town, and their baby gets taken as well. So it's a case of, missing children and children getting brutally murdered and all that. So as you can guess, just as in the first season, it's a very unusual sort of case that goes into taboo territory, since once again it's about children, and it doesn't go too much into the pedophilia aspect and the queer aspect as we had in the first season, but it's still about babies and children, so it's still not for the faint of heart. So at first, my thoughts on the story. Overall, I think the story worked. Again, I love these dark aspects of the story and how we explore the psychology of the people that are being investigated. We also once again get a really good glimpse at who it turns out to be the bad guy in this, sort of person who did it. I'm gonna come back to that in a second. The biggest surprise here is, which is not really a surprise, is that the story focuses a lot more on Sarah this time around, which I think is good, because I liked her a lot as a character in the first season, and I think in the second season she works very well as the sort of strong female protagonist who is a bit ahead of her time, and is basically this very strong-headed, smart woman who tries to make a name for herself in this society that doesn't really accept women. So in that regard, we get like a really proper investigation again. We don't really get to see the police side of it this time around. Roosevelt is also not there again, which I think is sad, but I guess we're focusing on Sarah and her investigation, which I think is good. We see a couple more secondary characters who work in her detective agency who are mostly women, which I think is a nice touch. And in general, I think it was a good idea to, well, I guess also the book does, I haven't read the second book, to follow Sarah as a sort of new lead throughout this show. So I think the story follows a couple of interesting new characters we get to see. We talk a lot to the Spanish family and the household they have, which is especially interesting since there are sort of political tensions between the Americans and the Spanish at the time the story is set. So that sort of adds an extra layer of intensity. Then one of the other major settings we get is this, I guess it's sort of hospital for women, which also is kind of an asylum, and this is where a lot of the story happens, which I think is interesting because it gives us a lot of people to suspect, since there's this doctor who works, there's a physician who is set up early to be sort of Laszlo's rival, which I think is interesting. I'm going to come back to that as well. And then we got a couple of nurses who worked there. We also get to explore throughout the season also a couple of patients we meet there. So again, I think it's very interesting here that they seem to focus on this women and feminism issue, not just with Dakota Fanning's character, but also with the story I'm trying to tell, since it's about a mother and losing their children and finding out how women are being treated, especially how mothers are being treated, especially also when they're regarded to be mentally ill, and how they are treated by society, which we see right away in basically the opening of the first episode, when we encounter the woman in prison, and we see how a lot of women are demonstrating for her to be released, but no one believes her, also simply because she is a woman. So there are a lot of themes regarding feminism and how women are being treated by society, which I think get very interestingly addressed, also especially, of course, through the character of Sarah Howard, who I'm going to come back to in a minute. So overall, I think the story worked very well. The only complaints I have that I'm going to mention now is that we do get to find out who did it earlier than I expected. So I think the second season has like 8 episodes, and we find out who did it in, I don't know, like episode 5 or something, or like halfway through even. And I'm not quite sure if that might have been a mistake, because I worried while watching the second half of the season that the story wasn't working as well when we already knew who it was, than when we didn't know who it was. Since it sort of takes away from the tension. Of course, they still have to, find them and arrest them, but at the same time, we see the person who did it and what they're doing. So I don't know. It just misses sort of tension that I liked in season 1, where we really didn't find out who it was until the very, very end, and there were some good red herrings and misleading storylines, which I'm missing a bit in the second season. Like, it didn't come to me as much as a surprise who it was at the end, or not at the end, than in season 1. So in this season, I could sort of guess who it was early on. I think the character they have and how they explore them afterwards is still interesting, but I think it works better if they had prolonged the reveal. Let me now talk about our main characters, where I also address a few story points throughout. So first off, our main character this season is unquestionably Sarah Howard, played by Dakota Fanning. I already said that I think that's a good idea to have her as a main character, because I think she is very interesting and we need more characters like her. And maybe for some people, I don't know, it could maybe be a bit too much in your face about, you know, I'm a strong woman and no one needs to tell me what to do and I can do this myself, etc., etc. I didn't mind that because I think we need characters like that, and especially in the society the character lives in, I think she has to declare that all the time. So I think that worked rather well, but I don't know, maybe some people might find it a bit annoying after a while, I don't know. So I already talked about Sarah mostly, and her character brings me to John Skylar Moore, who is just a sweetheart, I have to say, played by Luke Evans, again, wonderfully played by him. And his character in this season now works as a proper journalist, which I think is great. We see a bit of that, how that works out for him. But once again, his character is a bit more reduced to the romantic storylines. So this isn't really a big spoiler. You find out about this in like episode 1, episode 2. He is engaged to another woman. He's supposed to marry her very, very soon. But you can tell neither of them are really into it. I mean, especially not John. And as you can also guess from season 1, the relationship between Sarah and John gets explored further in the second season and becomes a main focus point for the two characters, and especially also for John. And without talking spoilers here, I thought it was interesting how they developed the relationship between them, even though it was predictable to a certain degree. I didn't mind it because I liked seeing the two of them together a lot in season 1, and I sort of kind of shipped them, so that was nice. However, how this development of their relationship works out towards the second half of the season might not make everyone happy. So maybe I'm going to talk about this later in a short spoiler part, but the abbreviated spoiler-free version is, for me personally, the relationship, how it works out towards the end is not good or not satisfying at all to me. I don't know if there's going to be a third season. At the moment I'm questioning it, but I don't know. But even if, I'm wondering what they would do, since they have done this relationship thing between Sarah and John for 2 seasons now. And then they end it in a way where you're left wondering, well, they can't just reopen that because it would just be the same thing again. And I was just a bit disappointed at the end of this season how they resolved the relationship, where it ends up being, because I thought that they had done so much and then sort of don't end it how you expect them to end it with, and I just didn't think it went well with. It didn't suit the characters, especially not John. I think because you thought the series was going to do it in that way, but then it sort of is like, oh no, we're not doing that. We're ending it like this, and you're left to wonder why. Sure, it would have been predictable to end it this way, but you know, it would have been satisfying. And as far as I can tell from like comments online, there were a lot of people who were dissatisfied with how the relationship is left at the end of this season. Me as well, if I'm being honest. John's character is not doing much else throughout the season. If I'm being honest, he mostly hangs around with Sarah, and they explore their relationship and John's relationship with his fiancée, which is nothing new. You could argue he has developed a bit of a character since he drinks a lot less and, you know, it's basically just more sober and clean in this second season. But you're not getting the focus, I think, on him as you did in season 1, which is a bit disappointing. But then again, Sarah is getting the development that she didn't really have in season 1, but now she's getting the focus. Speaking of character not getting too much attention, my boy, Dr. Laszlo Chrysler, played by the ever so wonderful Daniel Brühl, who I think is one of Germany's best actors, honestly, and I just love the way he plays his character, and he is such a wonderful and interesting personality. But what he's reduced to this season is almost nothing. honestly, now that I'm thinking back, there is not a whole lot he does. He has this emotional conversation with the woman in the opening of the first episode. Then he does a bit of psychoanalysis for the Spanish family. And he has this sort of rivalry with this other physician from the women's hospital. But in regards to what he does for the story, for the plot development, he doesn't do anything except for maybe some analysis of the Spanish family who lose their child. But apart from that, not a whole lot Laszlo does in this season. And for a series that's called The Alienist, and The Alienist being Laszlo Chrysler, and he is not in this story very, very much, or at least not to a degree that I would regard as being important to the plot that's happening, that was a bit disappointing, because he's my favourite character, and he is the titular character of the show. Like I said, I think it's good that Sarah gets more attention, but she virtually becomes the main character of the second season. Whereas Laszlo and John are really just, sort of her sidekicks. She's the one who leads the investigation, she's the one who drives the plot forward, and etc, etc. Which does work, but also sometimes really doesn't, especially in regards to, I think, Laszlo. Because I think a lot of people also watch the show because of him, because he's such an interesting character, and he's the alienist. And he had such interesting character traits and storylines in the first season. And nothing really happens with him in season 2. You can see that he has changed a bit as a character, where he's become a bit more, you could say casual, and he's a bit more open about his emotions. But apart from that, he's still the guy who analyzes people too much against their will, who says stuff he really, really shouldn't say in that moment, but, still has a heart of gold and wants to help people and all that. I wanted more of him. I just wanted him to be more important to the actual plot that was going on. Like, they have an interesting little storyline with him and this doctor from the women's hospital. I would have liked them to explore this antagonism between them a bit more, where, like, Laszlo really gets into it. I just wanted him to be play a bigger part in the investigation. That's it. Because, I always said, he's the alienist. He's the character that people come for. I mean, not the only one, but he's a titular character. And if he doesn't have anything important to say, why am I watching this? Like, the only other thing they do with him is what they already did in season 1, is that Laszlo once again gets sort of kind of another love story, but in a lot less emotional way. Without giving spoilers, but, the detail in this relationship subplot felt a lot less detailed, or, not as emotional as it did in season 1. Like, when in season 1 his girlfriend died, you felt really bad about it, because he had finally found someone to be in love with, to be open with, and then she dies, and it's really sad. But this time around, the woman that it's introduced is admittedly pretty interesting. And she's played by Laura Pulver, aka Irene Adler from BBC Sherlock. So that's pretty cool. She fits right in there. And I think her character there's all going on there. And I think she could be a potentially interesting partner for Laszlo. But she gets introduced way too late, I think. And there's not enough time or detail given to the development of these two characters, where at the end, what they're setting up for Laszlo, for his character, where I'm thinking, I'm not buying this. Why would he do this? Why would he go for any of that? And why are these two so obviously, apparently into each other, except for, she's also a bit weird and interesting. I know, also I just think it's a stupid rehash. Like, he already had a love subplot in the first season. He didn't need that again in season 2. It just didn't feel right. It felt a bit awkward. And in general, I'm a bit disappointed with what they've done with Laszlo in the second season, because I wanted to have more of him. I wanted more exploration of his character, and that just doesn't happen. Speaking of characters that don't do a lot, Isaacson brothers, we don't even need to talk about them because they don't do anything. Like, honestly, I'm trying to think back as to what kind of scenes they have, and I can't remember any of them. Like, I think they have even fewer appearances than they did in season 1. Like, one of the brothers they're hinting at a love story's got going on with one of Sarah's other detectives, but there's not a lot going on there. And they're doing some of their investigative stuff, they're doing their shtick, but they're not getting not as much attention as they did in season 1, which at the end reduces into to nothing almost, because, like I said, I can't think about anything important they did in this season. So I'm going to jump in a few spoilers here. Here's timestamp if you want to jump straight to the conclusion. But yeah, here are a couple of spoilers just because I want to complain about stuff. Okay, yeah, so I already said the way they end Sarah and Joel's relationship, I think, is stupid, because I think they're setting this up so much that they could become a perfect couple, and that John would be willing to say, okay, yeah, I really want a family, but, I can put that on hold for now and be together with you because I really, really love you, and I don't like this other woman. Or that Sarah would say, I could maybe see myself not becoming a mother now, but maybe later, or, that at least would say, yes, I'm prepared to go into this relationship right now, and then we just see how it develops. But for the writers to just throw in at the end, oh no, John's fiancée is pregnant, and now John has to stay with her and can't enter this relationship. I'm like, dude, just cancel the marriage, the wedding, whatever. No one cares. I know you really like to be a dad, but come on, this is the woman you are obviously in love with and want to spend your life with. So forget about that other woman you obviously don't love, and yeah, sure, maybe there is a child, but who cares? There's a woman you love, and I just thought it was super lazy that at the very last minute, literally, they're like, oh, I can't be together with you because my fiancée is pregnant and I have to stay with her. Like, why? Why does that happen? I did mention that I think the character who turns out to be the one who did it, I think she's interesting, and she's one of the nurses. You can already sort of guess that it's her, but I really like her chemistry with Sarah Howard. They have this big conversation when they are at the cafe, and you can really feel they are connecting with each other. And I think there is some interesting chemistry going on there that they share. So I thought it was interesting to see that we can explore the nurse's character through Sarah's eyes, and that is also eventually what helps them to catch her at the end. So Laszlo at the end gets this offer to go to the continent and, enter this new relationship with the psychiatrist lady. I'm not sure how I feel about this. I already said that I'm not really buying the whole relationship that's going on between them. I also just don't buy that Laszlo would just leave everything behind he's worked so hard for. And I know for in the second half of the season they say you are banned from practicing, and he sort of learns to adjust that, but I just don't think this is something he would do, abandon everything he's worked for. So one of the Isaacson brothers dies, just like that. He gets shot and then dies, which honestly had no emotional impact on me whatsoever, simply because the two brothers played no important role in the second season. I would have been very sad if the same thing would have happened, I don't know, at the end of season 1. Yeah. But, since they virtually get almost nothing to do in the second season, or not a whole lot of scenes where I get to connect with them and their work and what they're doing, or their emotional lives or personal lives or whatever, I didn't feel sad when one of them got shot, and then we're at the funeral. It didn't make me sad. We had a similar, something similar happen in season 1, which is when, towards the end of the first season, Laszlo's girlfriend dies, which is sort of a similar emotional impact. You know, someone dies who's close to one of our main characters, and we're meant to feel sad about it, and, you know, it's sort of the low point of what's going on. But given that this is supposed to be one of the main characters or main secondary characters, I should have felt a lot more when he died, and I just didn't. And I think that just goes to show that I think the character writing in this second season was not as good as it was in season 1. I think everything went into Sarah's character, which is partly okay, because she is an interesting character, and I love how Dakota Fanning plays her. And I'm guessing that's also what happens in the book. But, you know, I just wanted more to happen with the other people. I'm like, they are also main characters. And if I'm not emotionally connected to them anymore by the end of season 2, then you've made a bit of a mistake in writing those characters. Okay, to sum this review up, I think the second season of The Alienist was entertaining. It was once again very interesting and thrilling. I think it was wonderful to see how the character of Sarah Howard was explored further and how she developed as a person. But that also takes away from the other characters, mainly from our two guys, Laszlo and John, who I think are wonderful characters, and they do their job, but they don't have enough scenes where I wanted them to be in, where I wanted them to do stuff that is relevant to the plot that is going on. Or I think the story does a good job, and there are some interesting themes and some interesting characters. I would have maybe done differently with the reveal. It does feel differently to season 1. It does. So you're not just getting the same thing. There are some rehashes here and there. But I think the overall feeling, the overall storyline is different enough to season 1. Well, I have to say, I did enjoy watching season 2. I mean, I binge watched it in a day. But I did not enjoy it as much as season 1. At the moment, I don't think there's going to be a second season because, as far as I'm aware, there isn't a third book, or at least not a book that is also set in, like, the 19th century with the same characters. Which is sad, because I would definitely watch a third season with these characters, especially since a lot of things at the end of season 2 are left open, or, you know, they are left in an unsatisfactory way, where you're wondering, okay, yeah, but what happens afterwards? So, I don't know, maybe the writers say, yeah, sure, we would write a third season, but it's not based on a book. That would be interesting to see what they would do. Because I do like these characters, and I like the premise, and I know there are a lot of people that are fans of, you know, period drama, but with crime and thrilling stuff, and it's a bit dirty and a bit dark. I know there are a lot of people out there who like this stuff as well. And the actors are absolutely phenomenal in this, and I think they play their character very, very well, and they share great chemistry. And yeah, I would like to see a third season, but at the moment I don't think it's going to happen. So this is it for my review of the second season of The Alienist. Have you watched the show? What are your thoughts on the second season? Put your thoughts down in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done it already. And I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.